Bars and clubs hoping to cash in on this year's Rugby World Cup could instead find themselves losing thousands of pounds worth of business. Next month, fans would ascend on the capital in time for kick-off at Twickenham. But the council is worried about the noise and disruption the tournament will bring. And that means landlords may be forced to close their doors early. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
1 month to go, the temporary turnstiles are in place. Twickenham Stadium is getting ready to party. And in the town centre, local businesses are hoping to cash in on World Cup fever. But in the pubs and bars, the mood has turned sour after the authorities proposed a match-day curfew on late-night drinkers. Landlords are being asked to refuse entry after 10 o'clock at night.
We do rugby all the time. This is Twickenham. You know, we do the Six Nations every year. We do the Autumn Internationals. We've never had any issues. This is the home of rugby. This is the World Cup coming up. You know, it seems ludicrous, to be honest.
Twickenham will host 10 matches during the Rugby World Cup. 4 of those will start at 8 p.m, finishing just before the 10 p.m. deadline, while another 6 games are afternoon kick-offs. Bruce Lyons is the chairman of the local business association and says the town is proud of its links with rugby.
People get a bit excited sometimes and they've had a drink or two, but we do not have any violence. We don't have shops broken into. You don't see shops around Twickenham with shutters on. I know plenty of towns where you do. This is an open town. We welcome people.
Matters came to a head on Saturday when England played France in a World Cup warm-up. Local bars were asked to try out the new rules in a pilot scheme, which, according to some landlords, cost them thousands in lost takings. The RFU says it made the announcement on Saturday because it was asked to by Richmond Council and the police. It appears this post-match clampdown on drinking is unique to Twickenham. It won't apply at other World Cup venues like the Olympic Stadium in Stratford or Cardiff. Richmond Council said evening games would put pressure on public transport, but no pub would be forced to take part.
With these evening kick-off matches, we've got to get people, have got to get out of the borough, they've got to get home. So we want people to be safe, but we certainly want them to come and enjoy themselves.
Aren't you in danger of being seen as party poopers?
No, certainly not, because people can go into the pubs, it's a voluntary agreement, and if the pubs aren't full, people can still go into them.
Tonight, Twickenham's pub trade was hoping for a change of heart after the council said it was reviewing the strategy with the police.
So Simon, when can we expect this drinking curfew to begin?
Well, the first game of the Rugby World Cup is England against Fiji, which is on September the 18th at Twickenham, 8 o'clock kick-off. So that's when you'd expect landlords to be under pressure to comply with the council's request. But the police have said they haven't actually finalised their plans for policing the World Cup yet. The council says it's reviewing its strategy in the light of what happened at the weekend. So it's entirely possible that the row may lead them to decide that it's too much hassle. And tonight we've heard from the brewery chain Fuller's, who appear to be throwing down the gauntlet, saying they've been dealing with post-rugby crowds for decades and have no intention of stopping now. OK,
Simon, thanks very much. Flanked by his union comrades at King's Cross Station, Jeremy Corbyn repeated his answer to the problems on the railways: renationalise them. The Islington North MP has burst into the public arena to become favourite for the Labour leadership. Our political correspondent Simon Harris spoke to him and his friends and foes about his credentials for the top job.
For a politician who doesn't care much for the dark art of spin, Jeremy Corbyn's image is suddenly important. The frontrunner to replace Ed Miliband was among friends today, union officials. The same union officials threatening to paralyse London Underground next week. But Corbyn was at King's Cross to talk about the railways.
Bring our railways back into public ownership and we'll all get a better, much more integrated transport system as a result of it.
Corbyn's dream is to renationalise the railways in 2020, if he's Prime Minister. Why would you be a good Prime Minister?
Because we have a big movement of ordinary people who are excited by politics and want to see real change. This is a push from the people on the political establishment, which has been too self-satisfied and too remote for too long. It's going to be exciting, it's going to be interesting, trust me.
But there are many in Labour who don't trust him. Last week, Tony Blair said the party was walking eyes shut, arms outstretched over the cliff's edge. Yesterday, former Foreign Secretary David Miliband said the Corbyn programme looks backwards. And former Business Secretary Lord Mandelson said Labour's existence as an effective electoral force is now at stake. Alex Burghardt is a Conservative. He's the candidate Corbyn defeated in Islington in May's general election.
He's a down-to-earth, likeable, dry and wry old lefty. He's totally sincere in his views, but those views are pretty extreme and I'd say quite dangerous.
Janet Burgess, a veteran Labour councillor in Islington, has known Corbyn for years. She has a different take on his appeal.
I think he would be much the same as he is now, very inclusive, continues to talk to people, draws everybody in, very inspiring.
Would he be a good leader?
Oh yes, without a doubt.
Not out of his depth?
No. Those of us who've worked with him for many years know his capabilities.
But is he Prime Minister material?
Oh, why not?
Why not? Not perhaps the most emphatic of endorsements, but the Corbyn effect was in evidence again last night in Ealing, where another packed meeting overflowed into the street. And it's scaring the hell out of some in the Labour Party.
Well, Simon, the race for leader isn't the only race going on in the Labour Party at the moment. So how will Corbyn mania affect the race for mayor?
Well, the Corbyn bandwagon could have a big impact on the mayoral contest. At the moment, the front-runner is Dame Tessa Jowell, former Olympics minister, keeper of the Blairite flame. But I'm told that something like 40,000 Labour Party members in May has now swollen to 130,000 eligible to vote in the London mayoral contest. And according to sources, polling on behalf of one of the candidates suggests all those newcomers, 90,000, have signed up for one reason, Jeremy Corbyn. If that is the case, it throws this race right open. Dame Tessa's closest rival is Sadiq Khan, the Tooting MP. Now, the polls say he's a long way behind, but a lot of those newcomers, if they're backing Corbyn, are unlikely to back a Blairite like Tessa Jowell. So this race could be an awful lot closer, and especially with the second preference votes and the Corbyn effect.
OK, Simon, thanks very much. The Lib Dems have become the first major party to pick a candidate for mayor, but they've done it by accident after one of the two people running pulled out. Dwayne Brooks, who was Stephen Lawrence's best friend, said today he's no longer standing, which leaves Caroline Pidgeon as the Lib Dem choice. Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris is here. So, Simon, why has Mr Brooks pulled out?
Well, in short, Charlene, he can't spare the time to take part in the Lib Dem selection process. Dwayne Brooks is probably still best known as the teenage friend who was with Stephen Lawrence on the night he was murdered 22 years ago. But in recent years, he's been a Liberal Democrat councillor in Lewisham and has also expressed an interest in the past about becoming the candidate's party for mayor. Now, this week, he started a new project reviewing stop and search powers for the police in Northamptonshire. So today we had a rather bizarre statement from the Liberal Democrats saying that he was one of two names on the shortlist of candidates to be their candidate for mayor, but unfortunately had since withdrawn owing to a new professional commitment.
So that just leaves Caroline Pidgeon then, doesn't it?
Yes, Caroline Pidgeon, she's a member of the London Assembly. She's been on the Assembly for 7 years. We often hear her talking about transport. In truth, she was probably the front runner, but now she's the only runner. She's on a short list of one. And it's very hard to see what, if anything, could actually stop her being anointed as the Liberal Democrat candidate for mayor in the middle of next month. We know that the other parties are still choosing their candidates. Will it be Zach Goldsmith, Tessa Jowell, Sadiq Khan? But it looks almost certain that Lib Dems have beaten them to it and that Caroline Pidgeon's name will be on the ballot paper in May.
OK, Simon, thanks very much.
Hello, I'm Lucrezia Millerini. They are usually the worst of enemies, but fans of football clubs from across the capital have come together to call for a public inquiry into West Ham's move to the Olympic Stadium. They are furious that the club have paid a tiny fraction of the cost of converting the stadium from athletics to football. They've set up a petition which has had 10,000 signatures in just 24 hours, meaning the government has to give an official response. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
In a matter of weeks, the eyes of the world will once again be on London's Olympic Stadium. It's about to host Rugby World Cup matches after a multi-million-pound makeover to give it a new roof. But a fresh row erupted today over the agreement which will see West Ham move into the stadium on a 99-year lease. In an unprecedented move, rival fans from 8 other London clubs have teamed up to demand a public inquiry into what they say is a shady deal. West Ham is thought to be paying £2.5 million a year in rent, but we can't be sure because it's a confidential contract. We do know the stadium's £429 million construction cost. Then there's another £272 million to convert it from Olympic venue to football ground. West Ham's contribution to that is just £15 million. Matt Hooper and Jeremy Gardner speak for fans of two different teams, and for once they agree West Ham is getting an unfair advantage.
I think what we've seen, the strength of feeling amongst supporters right around the country, is that the state subsidy is completely unfair, and in competition within the sort of footballing world is unfair competition for every club, no matter whether it be Leyton Orient or Manchester United.
What harm is West Ham's deal doing to your club?
It will be doing harm because commercially West Ham is receiving money from the taxpayer. We are not. And therefore, if you're talking about fair competition, well, it isn't.
In a statement, West Ham said during a fair, open and robust process, West Ham United were chosen as the group that delivered the best long-term viable future for the stadium and the best return for the taxpayer. Our contribution alone will pay back more than the cost of building and converting the stadium over the course of our tenancy. Legacy was one of the cornerstones of London's Olympic plan. There was a promise of no white elephants. It's now emerged the West Ham deal will see even the goalposts and corner flags bankrolled by the taxpayer. Labour wants the government to open the books.
When the government put together the legacy programme for the Olympics, the whole idea was that we as taxpayers would be getting good value for money. Now, I have no complaint about West Ham trying to drive a tough deal with the government, but it seems as if they've frankly got the stadium for free.
Tonight, City Hall insisted Londoners had been left with an iconic venue which is already set to host world-class athletics and rugby. What's more, taxpayers would get a share of stadium profits.
So, Simon, the government has to respond now, but what hope of anything more than that for these petitioners?
Well, the Supporters Trust are hoping the number of signatures will go above 100,000 when they think there's a good chance of it then being debated in Parliament. But when this stadium has already cost more than £700 million, I think there's going to be some resistance to spending even more money on a public inquiry. And let's not forget the stadium deal has already been before the courts. Leyton Orient tried and failed to get a judicial review. So all of the parties involved, West Ham, the London Legacy Development Corporation, the Mayor and the government can point to that and say there's absolutely no evidence of anything amiss. And they will continue to argue that, yes, West Ham has got a good deal, but so has the taxpayer because the stadium has a secure future. And they're confident it won't be the white elephant seen in so many other Olympic host cities.
OK, Simon Harris, thank you.